So, today, we're going to dive into one of the most powerful ideas of the 20th century and the absolutely revolutionary woman who brought it to the world, Simone de Beauvoir. Her work didn't just question the status quo, it completely rewrote the rules on what it means to be a woman. Let's get right into it.
Everything, and I mean everything, really starts with this one sentence. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This is the key that unlocks her entire philosophy. It's this radical idea that being a woman isn't some biological fact you're born with, but something society shapes you into. An idea that would spark a revolution and honestly continues to shape our world today. So, how does a person even arrive at an idea that changes everything? Well, to really get the idea, you've got to understand the person who came up with it. So let's dig into the life that led Simone de Beauvoir to write those absolutely immortal words. Her journey kicked off in a world with some very, very strict rules and expectations. But from a super young age, Simone de Beauvoir wasn't just learning those rules. She was getting ready to shatter them. And right away, you see this huge contradiction at the heart of her childhood. She's born into a pretty conservative family, but then a financial crisis hits, which means she's expected to get a job. Her father would praise her intelligence, famously telling her she had a man's brain. But in the next breath, he'd complain that she wasn't a boy. It was like a compliment wrapped inside a cage, and it definitely planted the first seeds of her rebellion. And that rebellion, it happened fast. By the time she was 14, she was done with religion. By 15, she knew without a doubt that she was going to be a writer. And then, at just 21, she becomes one of the youngest people ever to pass this ridiculously hard philosophy exam, the agrégation, placing second only to a guy named Jean-Paul Sartre. I mean, for a woman in 1929, this was just unheard of. Meeting Sartre at university kicked off one of history's most famous, and let's be real, most complicated intellectual partnerships. They created this unique pact. Their relationship would be the necessary love, the main event, the essential bond. Any other romances they had were just contingent loves. This was their radical attempt to completely reinvent partnership, totally outside the bounds of marriage, which, by the way, she completely refused. You can kind of see her whole spirit right here in her signature. It's bold, it's distinctive, it's totally unapologetic. This wasn't just a name on a page. This was the brand of an identity she was building for herself, an identity that was about to produce a masterpiece. So all of these experiences, her rebellion, her incredible intellect, her unconventional life, it was all building towards one single monumental work. Out of everything she ever did, this is what she's remembered for. Just look at this plaque on her old home. It doesn't say philosopher or novelist first. It says author of the second sex. Published back in 1949, this book would literally become the Bible for a whole new wave of feminism. Okay, so the absolute core of the book is this concept, the other. Beauvoir argued that for all of history, man has been the default setting, the self. Woman, on the other hand, is never defined on her own terms. She's always defined by her relationship to him. She becomes the add-on, the non-essential thing, the other. It's such a powerful way to explain the fundamental imbalance she was trying to expose. And building on that core idea, she just starts dismantling all the myths that kept women down. She argued that ideas of femininity aren't natural at all. They're just social roles designed to keep women in their place. She took a hard look at institutions like marriage, and she insisted that without her own money, a woman could never, ever be truly free. It was just a complete, systematic takedown of the whole patriarchal system. And the impact? It was instantaneous. In just the first week in France, the book sold 22,000 copies. Think about that. This wasn't some obscure philosophy text collecting dust on a shelf. This was a cultural earthquake. The reaction was just as massive. The book's totally frank discussions of female sexuality, abortion, and marriage created an absolute firestorm. One famous writer, Francois Mauriac, actually wrote to the journal that published parts of it, saying, "Now I know everything about your boss's vagina." The Vatican even put the book on its official index of prohibited books. Beauvoir hadn't just written a book, she had kicked over the whole table. But here's the thing about Beauvoir. She didn't just write her philosophy. She lived it. She was an activist, a public intellectual, and this commitment to living out her ideas also made her a really complex and, a deeply controversial figure. She always put her principles on the line. She co-founded the super influential journal Les Tomes Modernes with Sartre. She publicly backed soldiers who refused to fight in the Algerian War. And most famously, she was a leader in the fight for reproductive rights in France, writing the Manifesto of the 343, where all these prominent women publicly declared, "I have had an abortion," risking jail time to demand it be legalized.
Okay, but we have to talk about the other side of the coin, because her legacy is not simple. It's not without its deep shadows. While she's celebrated as this feminist icon, her personal life has come under intense fire. There are really serious accusations that Beauvoir had sexually manipulative relationships with her underage female students, sometimes even bringing them into her relationship with Sartre. She was actually suspended from teaching back in 1943 because of a complaint, and her decision to sign a controversial petition in the 70s about the age of consent has only complicated her image further. It's a legacy that is both incredibly important and for sure deeply problematic. And in the end, her life stayed completely intertwined with Sartre's. They're buried together in Paris, a final testament to that necessary love that really defined both of their lives, for better and for worse. Their partnership, both intellectual and personal, is still one of the most debated in modern history.
When Sartre died, Beauvoir wrote this. It's such a powerful reflection. It's the statement of a true atheist, accepting the finality of death, but it's also this beautiful tribute to the deep harmony their lives had together. She's totally rejecting any fantasy of an afterlife, finding all the meaning right there in the life they actually lived.
So after all that, what's the big lesson we can pull from Beauvoir's brilliant, complicated life? I think it's this. Freedom isn't something you're just given. It's a project you have to work on. Her entire life was this demonstration that we have to question the roles and the ideas that society tells us are natural. Real freedom comes from that hard, constant work of defining ourselves for ourselves. And that brings us to our final thought, a question for you. Beauvoir's big challenge was against the idea of a natural woman. So we'll leave you with this. What idea in your life about your job, your relationships, who you're supposed to be, have you just accepted as natural? And what do you think might happen if you decided to challenge it?